Solar winds swept clean this planet 4.5 billion years ago. Earth thrived. Its natural elements helped it to flourish, and its bounty was for all to share. Then a life form of superior intelligence evolved, and for a while lived in harmony with the Earth. But paradise has been put into jeopardy. The motives are irrelevant. The consequences, severe. The remedy is written. The elements of life are clear.
In this edition of Elements, we take to the skies with the scientists who first realized all wasn't well with our fragile blue planet and proved that ozone, vital to Earth's survival, was disappearing at an alarming rate. While juicy steaks dripping with blood may not be the first choice of European diners worried about mad cow or foot and mouth, a surprising alternative is finally winging its way to European restaurants. Every year, China chomps its way through billions of disposable chopsticks. But now, environmentalists are hoping to change all that by persuading traditional chopstick lovers to swap to greener utensils. And we discover how these maps allow us to predict where certain species of fish should be on any given day. But first, it takes only a fraction of a second to destroy an artificial leg that's been months in the making. But in that millisecond, sensors attached to the limb record information crucial to the world's understanding of injuries caused by landmines. A team of Australian doctors and scientists has been enlisted by 5 countries, including the United States, Canada, Britain and New Zealand, to create anatomically exact human limbs. Doctors had to attach ligaments to bones and make cartilage to cover joint surfaces. They spent a long time researching what material would best imitate the muscle tissue and whether or not to cover it with skin, according to Professor Henenberg, Head of Anthropology and Anatomical Sciences at Australia's Adelaide University. Wesley Fisk did much of the legwork. Each ligament had to be attached by hand in a painstaking process, only to be blown to smithereens, all in the name of science. While it's a bit disheartening to see all the hard work vanish in a millisecond, the data they get from the tests and the resulting boots, which will hopefully prevent landmine damage to thousands of people around the world, makes all the time and effort worthwhile. 25 of these artificial legs have just been sent to Canada for testing by the military. But the information gained will be far-reaching in combating injury and even disease. Discussions are already underway for similar limbs to be made for testing in the automotive and aerospace industries. Plans already exist for the entire body of an average man and woman. From there, the doctors plan to develop the normal child, the normal older adult, the normal adult who has a particular bone disease, and so on. Eventually, they hope to custom-make the models to the specifications that both industry and the military require. In many countries, help can't come soon enough in providing crucial insights into minimizing, if not preventing, traumatic injuries such as these. Elsewhere in Australia, another research team has enjoyed a strategic win in the battle against the global threat of biological warfare. A tiny sensor has been developed that can be used by soldiers to detect germ warfare agents such as anthrax in the air. It was a project commissioned by the United States military. Nanotechnology is about developing devices the size of a few atoms. 3 years ago, Dr. Bruce Cornell and a team of Australian researchers made world headlines when they announced they'd built a working nanomachine, a molecular biosensor so sensitive it could detect a sugar cube dissolved in Sydney Harbour. The idea is that a weapon, rather than being a bomb or a missile, is now a bacterial spore. It might be vegetative bacteria, it might be viruses, and if one has an early warning of people being infected by these organisms, now there's a chance in these very early stages of actually being able to take remedial action. As crucial as it is on the battlefield, the technology could have far wider implications. It could be used to clean up air pollution and save lives in hospital emergency rooms. But critics warn that if unchecked, it could also pose a threat to humanity. A small sensor, barely the size of a thumbnail, will enable doctors to make a diagnosis from body fluids within minutes, tests that usually take up to 5 hours in an emergency room. Nanotechnology has not been without controversy. There have been worldwide calls for restraint and for guidelines on the development of nanomachines because of fears over the ability of molecules to self-replicate beyond human control. But Australian researchers dismiss these warnings. They believe that if you want to see the next level of human evolution, you'll find it coming from nanotechnology. It's our destiny, our fate, but certainly not a threat. In the meantime, this new discovery allows potentially for an instantaneous and highly reliable diagnosis of virtually all known viruses. Today's practices of pathology may soon become as outdated as leeches were in the face of modern medical science. The device is expected to be in use in hospitals in just a few months. It wasn't until the 1960s, when Apollo missions were bound for the moon, that we were first able to see complete pictures of the Earth. Environmentalists began to look at our planet as a single fragile ecosystem. Now we're intensely studying the thin halo of atmosphere that surrounds and protects the Earth. It recycles the air that we breathe, regulates climate, and acts as a protective barrier, filtering out much of the sun's harmful radiation. Several years ago, an international group of scientists proved that ozone, the key element in this filtering process, was being lost at an alarming rate over the South Pole. In fact, a sizable hole develops over this area each winter. Without ozone, the sun's harmful radiation could destroy life on Earth. A group of man-made compounds called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, used as refrigerants, cleaning solvents, and some plastic foams, were to blame for this environmental disaster. They eventually made their way into the atmosphere and began to destroy the ozone that surrounds the globe. Using the beautiful seaport town of Stavanger, Norway, as a base of operations, an international team of scientists was assembled in an emergency effort to make a detailed study of the North Pole. Most of the work was performed aboard 2 NASA aircraft. This is the ER-2. For the mission, special wing pods were attached containing atmospheric chemistry analysis equipment and a host of other instruments. Flights were made about 12 miles up along the fringes of space and right into the layers of atmosphere directly affected by ozone loss. The ER-2's research partner was a modified DC-8. It flew at lower altitudes but had increased fuel reserves, which allowed it to cover more territory, even flying directly over the North Pole. Inside the DC-8, there was a complete scientific observatory loaded with sensing instruments. Scientists performed their experiments and were able to map results right on the spot. This instrument contains 4 lasers capable of shooting light many miles up into the atmosphere. The light reflects back to the plane and provides scientists with a cross-sectional map of ozone concentrations as well as aerosols or regions where ozone depletion is capable of occurring. Initial results from both aircraft indicated that high concentrations of CFCs had been found at northern latitudes primed for ozone destruction. When combined with high-altitude ice clouds, the right amount of sunlight and confined, slow-moving masses of air, ozone destruction occurs. As a result of this airborne mission, scientists were able to confirm the process and predict areas of depletion. International policymakers have since met in the hopes of limiting the amount of CFC production and agreed to phase out its use completely. Many scientists are still concerned that it wasn't done soon enough. Researching safe, economic replacements for CFCs is a vital part of solving this serious environmental issue. Thanks to the intensive work done in the last few years, we know why ozone depletion exists. It's now up to the international community to take responsibility for the future of our global environment. The People's Republic is undergoing a revolution, but it's not the sort you may be thinking of. This one began in the kitchens, canteens, and restaurants. In China, where there's food, there's chopsticks, billions of them. Each year, Chinese food lovers use and then discard some 45 billion pairs of the small traditional sticks, most of them after a single meal. It was in the mid-80s that throwaway chopsticks produced from birch or poplar began to replace the reusable kind for reasons of hygiene. 2 years ago, Beijing's elite Tsinghua University became the focus of a unique initiative. Environmental science students Lei Yu and Guo Peiwan persuaded campus canteens to replace throwaway chopsticks with recyclable spoons. The spoons are made of plastic, say the students, because the canteens can't ensure metal spoons are properly sterilized after use, but the plastic ones can be recycled into other products. That's far more than can be said for the 25 million trees chopped down each year to make the nation's chopsticks. Some students complained that it was impossible to eat certain foods like noodles without chopsticks, while others said the spoons cut their mouths. But the students persevered, and now all 15 canteens use the spoons, which are cleaned and then recycled into other plastic products. People are also encouraged to carry their own personal chopsticks with them wherever they go. Other Asian nations like Japan and South Korea have also been criticized by environmentalists for their throwaway chopstick habit. So much so that South Korea has switched mainly to metal chopsticks, but Japan still prefers the disposable kind. While China may have bigger environmental headaches than throwaway chopsticks, students say that every little bit counts. If even a few million people abandon the throwaway habit, then some of the country's dwindling forests might be saved, giving China's fledgling green movement a much-needed boost. The only exception, incidentally, is for noodles. But you can't win them all. Only the sound of pecking upsets the tranquility down on the farm. Overlooking the Sea of Galilee, some 14,000 animals bred for their meat peck and feed the hot days away, but not for long. As European beefeaters change their dining habits thanks to the mad cow and foot and mouth disease scares, the animals pecking away on the foothills of the Golan Heights are in big demand. Ostrich meat is suddenly big business, according to the general manager of the Zimak ostrich farm, Yakov Orr. The food crisis in Europe has sent demand for the disease-free birds soaring, and the slaughterhouse of Orr's farm into an unprecedented flurry of activity to cope with all the new orders. Initially, the company was exporting most of its meat to Italy and France. Today, there's a demand from all over Europe, and the original customers from Italy and France are asking for much more meat than can be supplied. The foot-and-mouth epidemic has spread from Britain, where at one point there were in excess of 430 infected sites into mainland Europe. The Netherlands announced that it had become the second country on the mainland after France to succumb to the disease. Gourmet cooks have long favoured the low-cholesterol, low-fat, distinctive ostrich meat whose high prices, compared to beef and chicken, have kept it in the specialty food sector until now. Consumers can expect to pay around $8 per kilo for beef and $15 for ostrich. Ostriches yield only about 30 kilograms of meat per animal compared to 250 kilograms for cows, but they still can be profitable. A US publicity drive in the 1990s touted the healthy aspects of the meat and helped to boost Zemax sales in the South African-dominated market, although palates and perceptions proved to be too conservative to make the permanent switch. Orr believes that fears of foot-and-mouth and mad cow disease abroad could finally bring about a long-lasting change in consumption habits that will strengthen the untainted ostrich market beyond existing areas of demand in Italy and France. Unlike British cows, the ostriches have never been fed blood or bone meal that's believed to have played a significant role in the development of the deadly mad cow disease. Zemax exports have surged from a single tonne of meat this time last year to 14 tonnes. That's good news for the farm, but less fortuitous for the 500 8-month-old birds in paddock 211, who could have once anticipated to live for about 13 months. Established in 1988 as a tourist venture, the farm now has an advanced incubation and rearing program that closely monitors the parentage and breeding performance of the animals. Despite the recent boom in the meat market, the company doesn't intend to restructure operations. Instead, it will continue to focus on more lucrative ostrich skin exports to Japan that account for around 70% of its $14 million annual turnover. Skin production is a delicate business. The slightest tension can leave permanent marks, which is why birds are treated with kid gloves from the moment they hatch. Across the border in Jordan, the Shumari Nature Reserve, the first of its kind in the country, has flocks of blue-necked ostriches, and their eggs are being used as novelty gifts. The birds are the closest living relatives of the Syrian ostrich, now extinct in Jordan. 3 years ago, the Reserve Administration decided to benefit from infertile ostrich eggs by bringing in local artists to paint them and put them up for sale. The unique designs on colourful hand-painted eggs are inspired by famous mosaics and frescoes, or feature pictures of wildlife that live in the desert kingdom. The annual production of hand-painted eggs at Shumari is around 350, but the reserve plans to increase production and export eggs to foreign markets. The Royal Society for the Conservation of Nature is breeding ostriches as part of its program to save the endangered birds, while the Artist Project was set up to bring income to the local community. After the eggs are painted, they're transferred to showrooms in the Jordanian capital, Amman, where tourists often buy the colourful eggs for their Easter celebrations. The prices range between $100 and $400. Egg painting is one of many enterprises initiated by the Royal Society to bring benefits to people living near nature reserves. Well, the secret's out. Ginger has been revealed as a groundbreaking scooter that can balance on 2 wheels. The magazine that initially sparked the media frenzy, Inside, discovered that the tiny vehicle will run, at least in part, on the power of hydrogen. Adam Pennenberg, a reporter with Inside.com, dug through thousands of pages of patent applications in order to get a clearer picture of the mysterious device invented by Dean Kamen. Speculation about the device centred on the claims by high-profile businessmen such as Apple's Steve Jobs that ginger could have a profound impact on society and the environment. A widely available hydrogen-powered vehicle would be a significant development. Dean Kamen, Ginger's inventor, hit the news in 1999 when his invention of a wheelchair known as iBot was unveiled. It's capable of traversing difficult terrain, including stairs, and can extend its base for extra mobility. But with anti-tipping mechanisms, gyroscope sensors and revolutionary fuel system, Ginger is certainly the one to look out for. For years, researchers have been using aircraft and satellites to produce information-rich views of our planet. It's called remote sensing, and although the science is not new, its applications continue to grow. Image processing software called ELAS, developed by NASA's Stennis Space Center in Mississippi, is now being used to manage and conserve fish populations in the Gulf of Mexico. These maps of sea surface temperatures allow researchers at the National Marine Fishery Service to predict where certain species of fish should be on any given day. This capability is a much-needed tool for scientists working aboard vessels like the Chapman. Fishing is a major industry here, and any information collected during these research missions is used to set critical catch limits. The temperature maps, accessible with a standard personal computer on the ship, make it easier to locate and sample fish being studied. Reducing search time saves man-hours and fuel, and being able to gather data faster makes setting catch limits more precise. When the changes in surface temperatures are too subtle to be mapped, a specially equipped NASA Learjet is used to measure concentrations of chlorophyll in coastal waters. The same boundaries between water types used to locate fish can be found with these displays as well. With the help of businessmen like Mike Furnett, the technology is now being moved into the marketplace. As with all charter boat owners, Furnett's livelihood depends upon finding fish for his customers. Reducing search times would also save larger commercial fishing operations thousands of dollars in fuel costs, savings which could in turn be passed on to consumers. Most importantly, there are no dangers of overfishing. The livelihood of the fishermen depends on sustaining their fishery in the long term, and they know it. Locating fish from above, using NASA's software to manage an important natural resource. That brings us to the end of this edition. We look forward to your company for the next Elements.